You love that gavel. 7 on the button.
All right, we'll call this meeting to order. This is a work session of the Mayor and Borough Council of Borough Seaside Park County, Ocean State of New Jersey, held on Thursday, July 27, 2023, advertised for 7 p.m. Pursuant to the provisions of New Jersey's Open Public Meetings Act, adequate notice of this meeting was properly provided by transmitting the notice of the meeting for publication in the Asbury Park Press and the Star Ledger on January 4, 2023. Notice of the meeting of the governing body has also been posted in the corridor of the municipal building and in the office of the municipal clerk. Roll call.
Councilmember Anfield?
Here.
Councilmember Condos?
Here.
Councilmember Kraft?
Here.
Councilmember Welk?
Here.
Councilmember Dr. McHugh?
He's expected, I believe.
Thank you. Council President DeMichael?
Here.
Mayor Peterson?
Here.
Thank you.
The next is a letter that we received July 18th from a Mr. John McGrath, and he is congratulating Seaside Park, and the focus of it, there was a publication in the Star Ledger rating New Jersey's beaches, and he has that with it all, how Seaside Park has gone up in its ratings, and then it was nice. You always get letters if people want to change something or complain, and this is a very nice
That never
letter.
happens.
Somebody, recent article in the Star Ledger was quite impressive. I think the wording of the article says it all. It seems like every year we go, it's an even cleaner and prettier beach than the year before. The statement could easily apply to the entire borough, and he says he's come down to Seaside Park, rented back in time, and then since 1984, they had a family home, and couldn't be more pleased. So he says, thank everyone associated with the municipality, all those who the tasks that often seem routine make Seaside Park a most enjoyable family town and destination for all to enjoy. Thank you. The leadership in assembling a team were able to deliver these fine results. And he's not a brother-in-law, I don't know. But it was very nice
Yeah,
of
it was a
him.
very nice letter.
And he has this survey, that was kind of interesting too, each town that has a little write-up about their beach, go up and down the.
Mhm. Very nice.
And the next is a letter we received from our resident, Mary Ann McKee, and she is addressing the letter to all of us in the governing body and asking about the status of the crescents and what progress, what's ongoing. And she CCs the governor, she CCs the co-chairs of the committee in the Crescent Committee. So what, in terms of status, who take the lead? I know it's in the hands of CME Engineering.
Is that right? Yeah.
Yeah, so, still jumping through regulatory hoops. The project in total, in aggregate, if anything is over an acre, it's a major product and has a lot more regulatory hoops to jump through in terms of stormwater, permitting, and believe it or not, the 28 crescents that we have in town in aggregate is almost 3 acres. So, yeah.
3 acres?
Almost, yeah.
Good.
So,
How many acres?
almost 3,
Wow.
the 28 crescents. So, and speaking with Doug Romeyer today, he was suggesting that we bite it off in a smaller
I was
portion.
gonna say, can you break it up into
Well, you can, but you
a few
can't do like,
crescents at a time?
you can't do 10, 10, and 8 because they're hip to that. So his suggestion is maybe, prioritize the top 10, perhaps 11, and kind of go from there. So, but he's still working with DEP and DOT. And when I spoke to him this afternoon, he wants to meet with the committee again. Dr. Fritz here comes, he knows all this as well. So,
Just in time. We're here. We're
nice haircut. Thanks.
we just we're summarizing a status update on the crescents. That's really the, Mary Ann McKee had written this letter
Perfect.
asking us for, and I know it's in Doug's hands, and he's dealing with DOT and DEP, so I don't know.
Talk to him. Here's my update.
All right.
This is from a week or so ago, and Karen spoke with him today, so she could fill me in she can hit any spots I may miss. Okay, well, the DOT has no sense of urgency in this whole matter. That's shocking. Beyond that, there are two criteria that have met, one of two that have met will deem our project up here to be a declared a major development. When something is declared a major development, it needs to go through certain steps that otherwise wouldn't be necessary, and they appear to be very expensive and cumbersome. This two criteria is if over an acre of land or soil is disturbed, and the second one is a quarter acre. If we make it a quarter of an acre or more impervious, then it triggers this declaration of a major development. So, the advice from our engineer, and I agree, is to scale it down. So, of those criteria, I'm not sure about the impervious surface, but we definitely are disturbing more than an acre of ground. So therefore, this would make it a lot more cumbersome as a borough to undertake. And so what we want to do, what I propose we do, is to meet with the committees again who are involved in this in town, and discuss with them which of these, figure about 10 or 11 of these crescents would be a good number to shoot for. And if they were to come up with what they would deem the most important, that's what I propose. Now, we can get on that tomorrow, if you like, in terms of setting up a date. But that's what I found out. Karen, is that about accurate?
Yeah, that's accurate. They, prioritize the 10 or 11 crescents.
What do they want to do? What they want to do on these crescents?
Well, they want to get rid of the rocks and the weeds, and they're pretty unsightly now.
They want to plant flowers in?
Well, that's what we want to find out from the
It's the
committee.
gateway to the town, so they want to make it more attractive
Right.
to traverse through the town, and that's the objective.
And have them help us identify plant
What
species
plants,
and plant
right.
location, which would really help our engineer.
Yeah.
Because DOT needs that information in their drawings. We need to tell them what we're going to plant and where.
We had some ideas previously, but I don't think they really would work after speaking with the DOT, so.
Like the benches and things, they'll never allow those.
No, and some of the flower pots, because of the line of sight and all that stuff. So there's more to it. Unfortunately, it's dealing with the state, with government and bureaucracy, and it's, so those wheels turn very, very slowly. Still, if at all, and they don't really care about it anyway. They're not treating it as though
They often turn
it's
backwards.
important at all.
And the other factor is, a lot of those areas have manhole covers now and then. They need access to clean out the stormwater system.
Right.
So it's going to be very limited what you can put in certain locations.
But if we were to declare it a major development, then we would have to address all those stormwater issues, right? I mean, it could get really crazy expensive.
Yeah. I remember we used to have the big bushes there. Couldn't see around the curves when you were turning. Yeah,
Those Japanese pines.
I remember that.
Trees.
I remember we were They're working on this years ago.
Actually, they look pretty good by the time they tore them down. I thought they were, they finally looked
See where
really
I am.
nice at the
Actually, I
time.
think they finally got into shape when they took it.
Right, and then they tore them down after Sandy, so.
What do you say, the doctor?
How, have Karen maybe reach out to her and the committee and work everybody's schedule as best possible and try
Yeah.
to come up with a game plan?
Yeah,
Precisely.
I think Doug wants to meet with the committee maybe next
Yeah.
week or so we'll meet with Doug first and then maybe, reach out to the Crescent Committee and get their input.
That sounds like a plan, so,
I mean, we're trying everything we can, it's just,
okay.
Frustrating.
I mean,
Think we'll get it, doctor? What's your gut feeling?
yes, I do.
Okay.
I mean, it's just talking really, and it seems like just talking to the right person at the right time seems to be,
We've been working on this for a while, that's for sure.
yeah. Well, I hadn't been, I just took it over a year or so ago, but the town has been,
Yeah, we've been talking about it with the old mayor, I remember.
we've been talking
With
about it a
Bob,
long
yeah, we
time.
talked about it with Bob. If we worked, we were discussing, if I remember correctly, we were discussing who was gonna maintain it. And then Bob said, we'll send this out to a contractor who would come in, like a gardener would come in once, or whatever they do. And that went nowhere, so here we were, ground zero.
Well, that turned out to be uneconomical, I believe.
Oh, yeah, of course, I mean, they want a lot of money to maintain those things.
Anything else then on that one? Thank you for
Nope.
updating your work.
Carol, get right on it.
In the list, right?
Yeah, put it on the list.
The next item is discussion of additional funding not to exceed $5,000 for ongoing services rendered by the American Littoral Society, and it concerns the Bayfront Living Shoreline work. There's a resolution for the regular meeting, and the specifics entail all the additional work that necessitating our SAB mitigation plan, which I'm hopeful, we're all hopeful, may be on the home stretch.
Right, this is the last straw, I think, of the
That's the
approval.
way the wording, yeah, I mean, it's been submitted, and they, I'd run into one of them at another function, they were talking favorably, but again, how fast they get to it is an issue, and we've advised them it's critically important.
This was one of the requirements, last requirements from the Army Corps of Engineers.
Yeah, that's the federal government.
Right.
The state, we've
Yeah,
satisfied, we got all the permits.
Can't joke around with those guys. They take everything so literally.
Ooh. All right. Anything else on that one?
No, yeah, let's keep that.
The next, there's a request for a waiver from the American Angler Surf Fishing Tournament for use of facilities application. That is also on for the regular meeting, and I know we submitted it for input from Steve and his office because they had done a lot of work for us on the beach management plan. We've all participated over the years with meetings and back and forth, and the ordinance. And everybody can weigh in, but the request asks for September 30th and October 1st. The ordinance reads October 1st.
Okay.
And they do have a rain date, so maybe there's something we can consider, but I'm going to ask Steve to give some input too.
As you know, there's a lot of work done to get the beach management plan done as required by the NJDEP, and Eric did a lot of work, everybody here did a lot of work, all of our engineers, and it came to a final conclusion that it was going to be May 16 through September 30. We're not going to have private vehicles on our beach. We did the ordinance is adopted, the plan, I believe, is approved by the NJDEP, if I'm not mistaken, and it's part of our requirements to meet state requirements. So I would suggest to you that we can't give a waiver or an exclusion to anybody to start putting private vehicles on that beach on September 30. I would tell you that something we just can't do. I confirmed with Eric Wojciechowski, our Public Works Supervisor, and he did confirm that those are the dates. It's very simple. It's now October 1 through May 15, and that's it. So I don't think the governing body has the discretion to, A, even attempt to amend the ordinance, because that's what it would be, an amendment to an ordinance, and B, it would violate our own plan that was, required by the NJDEP and that we've complied with. So I would tell you that it's something we really don't have the discretion to grant.
We would have to get permission from the DEP to even.
I wouldn't even go there.
No, I'm not saying we
So
are.
not worth it.
I mean, only just that it lands on a salary, and I think they probably
Yeah.
chose that.
Well, they have rain dates, if they want to use their rain dates alternatively,
I
or
think
October
that's the
1
way
and
to go.
another day, whatever.
14th and the 15th, right, or
Yeah,
the
they have-
weekend before.
Yeah,
Right, whatever,
they
but-
put a rain date, yeah.
We really can't do September. That's just,
Well, I guess it would be the 7th and the 8th.
7th,
well, they put in their rain
Next
dates of
weekend,
14
yeah.
and 15, so.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
that's 2 weeks after the 1st, so.
So maybe they, well,
Move it out
just
one
let
week.
them know it can't be September 3rd. It has to be October 1 and after.
So we send it back to
Could
them.
be one day, they could do one day.
Karen, I'm sure our business administrator will advise them accordingly.
Yeah,
Yes,
that's
Something we won't be able to approve tonight.
No, I agree.
Yeah.
Or at all.
Yeah.
Blame our attorney.
That's- The Black Prince.
That's right, Black Prince.
The Dark Prince, that's a Prince of Darkness.
There's a couple other things with this. Oh, are you finished?
No, yes, no, thank you, Doctor. I'm done.
No, on this one, or on the tournament?
Yeah.
Okay.
They have put up here on the top, use of beachfront at waterline with 4x4 access waived or daily permit. So we have to make a decision on that.
But this is after the
It's after
season, so
summer.
you don't have to,
No,
oh, waiving a beach buggy permit?
4x4.
But
That's in the
also-
winter time.
Oh, we've never done that.
But also in the application, it is checked off, they're gonna buy daily permits
Does it,
Yeah.
it says $10.
per
Is that
vehicle, yeah.
Are you
And what-
sure?
What Joe explained to me was in the past,
Yeah.
what this organizer has done, has bought like bulk permits, daily permits,
Okay.
generally more than what they actually issue.
Okay.
So,
Well, why does he say or, access waived? So they're saying with the access waived, so you don't have to pay or daily permit. I mean, he puts that on.
maybe he's hoping we'll say, oh,
Yeah.
Well, that's what I think we have to make
They
clear.
get, they have it checked, though.
yeah,
For $10.
per vehicle.
Well, doesn't say that.
We can make it clear, I think.
Yeah, that'll be,
Yeah, that's
we'll
a-
turn that over to Karen too.
Yeah.
Yeah, but this came up once before.
Yeah, it has come up.
We
Yeah.
addressed it the same way, so let's make note so that next year, that those dates are clear, so if this comes through and the dates are inappropriate and this and that's not right, send it back before we even get
Well,
it.
you may want to approve their rain dates tonight in case they want to use them, and then
Yeah,
that's the end of
That's
that.
fine.
That's a
Yeah.
good idea.
Locks them in. And then the other thing is the beach and council chamber. We've had some issues in these council chambers from different groups using this room. And we want to make clear with them too, that nobody would be allowed behind the
Make sure we
dais.
put those little.
Yeah, I know, but, well, we have to make that clear, because we've had, and I'm not blaming these guys at all, but we've had equipment damage, right, Mrs. Clerk?
Yeah.
And, I don't know if we've had anything stolen, but it's been,
Food left in council chambers and all this stuff pulled out, pushed off the table.
Maybe they should.
Unplugged.
I don't know.
Well, it's
I
a
just,
50 to 100 person
Maybe we should have an
attendance.
officer.
until 7 o'clock, so they're gonna fish,
Well, then, no, we should, exactly like Steve said, they should have somebody who's gonna be here supervising the room as
Be an
part of
officer.
the application,
Yeah.
and that's it.
And they pay for that.
Right.
Officer.
That
Yeah, there's a-
duty is the wages of the
Yeah, there's a
officer.
checklist of those
That's
particular
it.
items
I don't
that they
think
can.
it's
Reasonable. There's
Yeah.
a lot of people, and that, they must give the awards or prizes or something.
well, until 7 o'clock. I mean, fishing, I mean, some of the best fishing is around sunset. I don't know, what time the sun sets then around?
They put 0500 to 1900.
Right, so that's 7 o'clock. I would think it would go later than that. If they're gonna
If you're serious.
Right? I would think.
They're gonna have to fish it.
Fish a cut bait, man. That's right, Steve. That's right. So I don't know, they're just considerations I think we should bring up, because otherwise I don't want to hear complaints afterward.
So do you want us to tell them if they want to use council chambers, not to pay for supervision?
I don't know, it's up for discussion, I really don't know.
Well, for that volume of people, you would have probably the need to clean the room, address the bathrooms, like, absolutely, I think that would be standard at that point. I mean, isn't there a number that you say once it's over a certain number
There
of
is a
people?
room, I don't
Yeah,
know
the
what the
room
number is.
capacity has to be monitored also. The shrink can't hold 100 people.
Well, I'm just saying, I'm using an example that usually, once you're over 25 people, you have a use of facilities, right? So at that point, you're going
Well,
with
that's what
25
this is.
people, if they're having food and all those other things, there is somebody that would ultimately have to come through, clean, take the garbage out, clean the bathrooms, and they should absolutely be responsible for that fee. So whatever that is, based on the number of people, then maybe you're checking a couple boxes
Well,
there.
this is $25, I think, is what they've paid and what they expect to pay.
Yeah, but there's an additional fee payments here based on what the request is. So
Right.
when they're going through it, whether the departments are going through it or not, they should be identifying the need for whatever it is. If Alex taking care of buildings and grounds, somebody's got to clean up, maybe it's the town, or if the police need to be here to monitor the room, then it's the police. You check that off, there's a fee attached to each one, and that's part of the application.
So maybe you don't approve the rain dates tonight until we go back to the customer and say, we had a few more boxes you need to check. You got a few more fees you need to pay.
And the original dates are no good for the primary dates.
Yeah.
Or we could save the one date per our.
We could tell them we'll put it, if
On
it's
hold?
on that first meeting of August, would give them adequate time, wouldn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
So maybe if Karen could tell them that's what our plan is, but all these issues have to be addressed.
Are we gonna state what our fees are?
It's on the application.
It's already prescribed.
I mean, but what, you know, okay.
No, it's there. They just
We'll
have to
we'll
decide
check
whether
the
it's the
box,
use
tell them what it
of.
costs, what the additional fees are.
We just need a little more clarity on a few things.
Yeah, follow them tomorrow.
Okay.
Sounds good. And the next is a T&M proposal dated July 20th for the 13th Avenue softball field. It's a concept plan, construction cost estimate, and that's on for the regular meeting, Resolution 2023-218 as well. And that's a follow-up of the meeting when they attended. And I believe what we were hopeful, once that concept plan is submitted, to again reach out for any and all possibilities if there's Green Acres or other funding that might cover some or all of it. I think there's a one email from their,
Yeah, it just opened up for 2024, that is.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's good news, absolutely, that's good news.
Mhm.
It opens up, I think, between October and February is the application period. We need to
Could
get on
fall
that.
into place.
Yeah,
oh,
And we've already done a lot of work, a lot of
yeah,
other,
it ties right
Portions of this
into it.
project,
Yeah, with
right.
the electric and everything, yeah.
the playground and,
It's a very nice job, so,
yeah,
very nice.
you swung the swings in?
No, they're tied up on top.
They're tied up.
Ah, you wait.
Yeah, it's patient.
We heard it coming by slow.
I thought you were gonna climb the posts and pull them down, I guess, more.
Marty's pushing.
I know. Yeah, he is.
Anything else on that one then?
no, I think that's good.
I have one added one, I think everybody has it. It's a first reading of an ordinance, and this follows up our closed personnel meeting we had, and one of the formal actions being taken is on the agenda, Resolution 217, and that's the appointment of a police officer, which I congratulate the officer, and that's on the agenda. This first reading of the ordinance is, as we've all discussed with Labor Council, it's a little more bureaucratic process because the candidate involved comes from another municipality. So it's a first reading of the ordinance to get that process in motion. And that second reading, I think we talked to Sandy, could be the first meeting in August. Anybody have any, that's ordinance 08.
08.
2023-08.
Anyone else have a work session item? We have a presentation on the agenda. Anyone else have anything at this time?
Nope.
You know something on that?
Let's see you get away.
Come on, sell it.
All right. C Street to Second Avenue.
Say what, C Street?
C Street.
Okay.
Used to be all two-way streets. C Street, I think, kind of went first. I don't know, but years ago, when I was on council passed a change in the ordinance that said the streets from Second Avenue to Brighton Avenue are one-way streets. Second Avenue has already gone back to two-way because the liquor store people, I guess the trucks, the liquor store were complaining.
Right.
Businesses, and so that's now two-way again. It's a narrow street. They're all narrow streets. That was kind of the purpose for it.
It is, yeah.
And there were two sides of it, the argument, you know. One side was that it actually, the opposing traffic actually slows the traffic down a little sometimes, rather than having it as a speedway, which, and I live on one of the streets, so I know. But, and so this is a little selfish, I admit, but I only have one way to go, and that's to come out onto Central Avenue. Now, those bump out things on the ends of the street make it so impossible to see. I would rather go out the Ocean Avenue way. I think it's a whole lot safer. Now, that's just my feeling. Because honestly, and my real feeling is they should only be one way during the summer, if at all anyway, because the winter time, it doesn't really matter. And those people that live close to Central Avenue, it goes east to west. Those people live near Central Avenue, they just come off Central Avenue anyway. They don't, but, you know, why go all the way around the block and come in when your house is right one house off of Central, you know what I mean? So, I'm just wondering how everybody feels about looking at that and making those streets either go one way toward the beach or just do away with the one-way thing altogether.
There's bump outs are true for every street on.
I know, they're horrible, but I don't have a choice.
Not just your street, but every street.
I know, but at least you guys can go the other way
True.
if you want.
True.
I can't.
Can you refer to bump out? What are you?
The way everybody is.
Oh,
Pedestrian.
yeah, okay, yep.
And so it's very dangerous. I mean, they almost have to.
And also that car, so if you're coming out to Central, that car that's parked, let's say on your immediate left, coming toward you, is so right there up to that very corner. That should have a little bit of a buffer within that parking space, because you can't, I agree with you 100%. The only thing I'm thinking about is if you're talking about, what, I think it's 4 or 5 blocks that are all within that one way, you kind of need to have that.
Do you?
Well, I don't know. It just
We
seems
never
like
did.
if you're coming around the corner, there's an emergency or something, now you've got to go all the way around like 4 blocks to get up a block, or I don't know.
Well,
It's just-
you
There's
know,
a reason
they-
why they're alternate, you know, so I would think there's some,
It's not really. I was on council at the time. It's an arbitrary decision.
no, I'm saying, but like when you get to first, second is two-way now. Then you get to the next block, it's going north, then the other, east, then the other one's going west, then you're going east, like they're
Yeah, that's
opposite.
where they work.
So there's a reason for the flow.
There's not.
Well, I'm just throwing it
I
out there.
mean, it sounds like it has
So
effort.
somebody thought of that.
Well, I did, I was on the council at the
Well, I'm
time.
not arguing with you.
No, I know you're not, but I'm just saying,
If I
you
lived
know.
on one street and I had to go around the corner, you gotta go 4 or 5 blocks now, which is what I think was the reason why they decided to go one.
Every other.
Well, we decided Brighton Avenue because when emergency vehicles come off the beach, we just want them to go right there, straight down the street, right to Central Avenue without having to, you know, face anything. That was the reason for that, and then the other ones fell. This is what happened. And so that was Brighton, Islands this way, North that way,
Yeah.
first. That's the way it went. So that's why it was decided to do that way. I don't know.
Doctor, were you on council when they changed it?
Yes.
Was that in the 80s? Because when I was a kid,
Yeah,
they
I
were
was,
they were all
was-
two-way streets. They were all two-way streets. They were all two-way.
You
Cars
were-
are going up and sides.
Right.
Two cars coming, it can't be.
Second Avenue was brutal.
No, it's only been about.
First Avenue is just.
Been
It
10
is.
years, maybe.
And First is 2 ways, right?
No,
Oh,
no, it's one way.
It is.
It was-
Yeah.
you know what it was?
Unfortunately, that street is no different, and it's two-way. It's just, it's the most narrow street in town, and it's two-way.
Your street's
No.
8, 9, or 10.
two-way.
I'll tell you what it was. I'll tell you when it was.
Thank God it's two-way or
It's only gonna be two-way.
You need a boat at the end to
You
turn
put a
around.
boat with the bay.
Sometimes you
What are
kinda do have to
talking
look
about?
for it.
Well, what I'm saying is, I remember how it happened and why it happened. Dave Meyer was on council at the time, and his is one of those affected streets.
What are you proposing,
What do you
or what are you
propose?
asking?
I don't know. I would like to, just field,
Any
you know,
suggestions?
yeah, I don't have, you know, one of my streets is it, so, is one of the, my street is one of the streets involved, so I almost feel like there's a conflict of interest in a way, but really, I don't know, I haven't talked to anybody about it, it's just something that bothers me every time I pull out. You know, if I want to get on Central Avenue, I almost have to go out into the traffic lane to see.
Even when you're crossing the medium, it's still the same thing. When you get into the middle and you go to make a left, it's still very difficult to see the oncoming traffic on either way when you cross. I agree with you. I think if there's any way you can adjust that one section, I would say before you go into the one two-way change, that immediate section on the left, if you made that a yellow area to back that car from parking, because that car that's parked there is right there. If you gave yourself maybe 3 more feet, it gives you that little bit of inch to get out. Do you follow what I'm saying?
Yeah, I
on that?
do, yeah.
I think that would be more reasonable than going through all of
Yeah,
that
but
change.
better line of sight, but I agree, but that's a state highway.
Well, you asked
So-
for ideas, I'm just throwing one
I
out.
know, I want.
Because I don't know that it's gonna work, that you're gonna change all those into one-way streets. I just think that's.
Make everything two-way.
You're saying make them two-way, Chris, versus
It's
one?
more dangerous than it used to be.
Well,
There's no question. Yeah.
I just don't want to be forced to go down there and pull out, where I think it's very dangerous.
Well, I think
And I have had a couple neighbors, you know, mention it, but
I agree with you,
I think it's
Doctor.
something we can share.
What
Yeah, I
committee
think-
would look at it, like the
Safety.
plan or?
Yeah, we could look at it. Yeah.
Maybe get copies of those minutes or whatever, when it
Some
was
suggestions.
done, if
Yeah,
it triggers some
please.
history that
Yeah.
might jog everybody's
Probably
memory,
ask
I
some of the
don't know.
residents what they think on this.
Mrs. Clerk,
Yes.
She's thrilled.
you on that one?
Survey, please?
Got it.
Thank you.
No, we could definitely bring that up.
Right?
Right. I think, it's a good idea, maybe,
Anyone else on council, any work session items?
Yeah, right?
I think it's a good idea.
It's in the
Doctor.
wintertime.
In the wintertime, they
If
go
not,
two-way street.
What, we have a presentation, and we welcome
Thank you.
Brian Tracy, BKT Architects, Philadelphia, and he has a presentation for us, and I know
Where you gonna go?
I'd like to say-
Councilmember Wilk and Councilmember
sure.
Amabile.
Yeah, then they can see you there.
Yeah.
2 minutes.
All
I'd
right.
like to say, Mr. Mayor, this was all done by pro bono.
Mr. Tracy is a member of our environmental
Environmental committee.
So we,
And my office is in Philly, but I'm a resident of Seaside.
all right.
I'm not a Pennsylvania guy, coming here trying to give you guys ideas. I'm a Seaside guy. I'm coming here for my whole life.
And I know, while Brian is setting up, I can turn the floor over.
I'll wait till we get.
Okay, go get it up and running, and
Only take what I hear. I didn't want to stir
What'd you bet?
the work session.
I'll just move over this way.
It's funny because in my office, we do everything 3D computer modeling. I did all this by hand, old school, because it was fun. Yeah, this thing, if we get legs on this project, we'll have a whole nother level of presentation next time. But for now, to introduce the ideas, it's old school. Okay.
You need to table it?
This is good.
He might be in the best suit.
Hmm?
He might be in the best suit.
You want us to move, or you
He
can
might
see
be
with us
looking at
here?
an
or
angle.
no?
I can move this stuff around, whatever works best for you guys.
Everyone's familiar with the lot. Basically, the concept is to have an open market feel that would contain items, some items that we already have. It would be the gazebo that I believe we still have in storage, that was from the school. It would reuse all the boulders that were picked up along the crescents on Central Avenue. We have
28 crescents.
28. It would contain bike repair station, water filler tables for playing games, and butterfly garden, and shrubbery, fencing, shrubbery along the back wall on the other side. And then it would contain these craft booths. We couldn't really come up with a name that could be leased out for non-competitive vendors that would not compete against any of our stores, our local stores. The ideas would be open and corner to corner and inviting to come in and utilize for open space. It could be used for seminars, small groups. So that was, Brian can go through the details.
Yeah, so thank you for everyone coming to see the presentation and for giving me a chance to talk about it. I was asked to look at some ideas for what might be the best use for this public space, right? So I think everyone's aware that the lot was acquired under eminent domain and there are some restrictions on how it can be used. I won't describe those, I'm not the expert in that, but this space must be used for something for the public. So we got together and shared ideas about what we could do that everyone in the community could benefit from. What kind of space could we create where a kid walking from Betty and Nick's to the Fifth Street Pier could cut through a park, where somebody who gets a donut at Park Bakery can sit and eat their donut, or if you get a sandwich at White Oak in the afternoon, rather than bring it back to a windy day like today on the beach and get sand in your sandwich, you could sit in this space. But also, one of these booths could be used as a shed, and we could keep outdoor ping pong tables and cornhole games and do other things to create a public space that's got some vitality to it. In urban design, empty lots, vacant lots are just bad for communities. They give a visual sense of a community in decline.
Abandonment.
Parking lots are even worse. We've got a nice little commercial district that we all count on, that we all like to walk to. And a park like this can strengthen our existing businesses like beach culture, Park Bakery, and so on. So for me, I was happy to raise to the call when somebody asked, would you be interested in sharing some ideas? And when Ray mentioned his pro bono, I offered immediately. I said, yes, I'll help. And there has to be nothing in it for me, other than what's in it for all of you. And that's to do something for Seaside. As Marty was describing, I'll walk through it a little more. We've got a couple spaces for gardens. We have some great committees here in Seaside, gardening committees and the environmental committee, which I'm on, that would have an opportunity to introduce some native plants and some educational component through that. The idea with this curve is that this bluish area would be pavers, and the dotted area would be crushed shells, so it's pervious, and that people who are walking up Third would naturally want to cut across. People coming down Central would visually be pulled in. So these here are tables that would be fixed. Could be concrete tables or fixed metal tables and chairs. And these are light poles marching down the street to give us a nice lit space. And these booths could have rolling doors so they could be closed at night, lights on them. And then along the street, we'd have light poles with some seating. This sketch here is out on the corner of Central and Third. So there might be a bench and a bottle filler on one side and a bike pump and maintenance item on the other. We'd have bike racks at either end. So the idea is that this space is available to the public year-round. We could do concrete checkerboard tables that are so successful in parks. I know when my grandfather brought me to Park Bakery as a little kid, we would have loved to have had a place like this to go hang out. And when I'm up early and I wake the whole house up, they always try to get me out of the house early when I was a kid. This would have been a great spot for that. So we as a group envision kind of the stretch fabric canopies for shade over here. And as Marty said, we're using the gazebo for some more shade there. So playing with materials and color, but mostly keep it an open. So when the craft booths, which could be pop-up shops, which are all the rage around the country right now. So there's a couple of stores in Point Pleasant that I think would love to have a pop-up weekend or 1 week shop in the summer. There could be face painting, there could be other crafts. So like Marty said, not competing with the stores there, but introducing just some activity and vitality to the neighborhood. So, you know, we're here to kind of share these concepts. So this drawing, we've worked with an engineer's land survey. So all of these items drawn on this drawing are to scale. The craft booths would be 9 by 15, laid out for display on 3 sides. So we'd have fences and hedges as buffers for the adjacent residential properties. And for all the uses that could end up there, that could be noisy, or restaurants like Chinese food that creates trash and odors, for all the uses that could end up there, we think that this strengthens the community and is kind to its adjacent neighbors. So this is where we are.
It also would be a perfect location for an information center for the borough. Give out brochures, and we can have our postings or whatever, advertising that we need to advertise for borough needs and for the community. It would be a great location for that. Always been looking for a location for a sign with information. Here would be a nice location.
Could you use it in the wintertime as well? Is your vision that you could do it like when you have the holiday, like tree lighting and different
You're
things that you
absolutely
could?
correct. Well, that was
like-
my vision, because I actually Googled German open air markets.
Right, like
And
the
they
craft
really
things
do
they
it very
do, like
accessible
Bryant
with the
Park
lights
where you have
and-
the pop-up.
And it's
Right.
a user-friendly area. It's 100 by 140 feet.
Yeah,
14,000
inside the
square
property
feet.
lines, so that's not even counting the sidewalks and the curbs and just inside the property lines. It's a nice size.
It's a user-friendly area to decorate or to embellish.
It'd be great for a holiday market. Yeah. Yeah, and any kind of pop-up market, right? And we just think that, arts and crafts would be something new for the town, that wouldn't compete with anything else.
How
And,
big
you know-
are each of those, like little booths, like in theory?
9 by 15. Enough that you could have like a 3-foot deep display table right up near the front, right? And then wrap 2 sides of it with additional display. And like I said, you could just roll the shutter down in the evening, lock it, and walk away. So one of these might be used for the maintenance and equipment for the space. And I think, what do we have, Marty, 9 on show?
Yeah,
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8. So
We needed a location for rakes or shovels and
Yeah,
brooms
we-
and dog trains and everything that you utilize for this particular piece of
yeah,
property.
and if when we get so busy that they're all full, we can put a little shed out behind.
Yeah, we think we're gonna put another shed behind it.
Yeah, but, so.
Plus, we have electric and water.
Mhm.
So it's one idea for the lot.
And the drawing has a component with the edge, like a buffer of greenery, the arborvitae's or something on the two sides of the adjoining residences?
That's correct, Mayor. Have a 6-foot fence with the, we would put probably like Leland cypress, something quick growing. That would be the buffer. Plus, there's also the secondary buffer between the boots and the property line along this back portion that we.
It would comply with all the zoning requirements for setbacks.
Yeah, it really does comply. It complies with the building lot coverage, it complies with every.
Impervious,
Impervious coverage.
yeah, setbacks, everything. All the bulk standards would be easily met. I mean, it's a pretty, low density, low intensity use, but the idea is that using plantings, benches, and light poles, you hold that street edge. So as you're driving up Central, you would see the park long before you get to it, right? And of course, it's the busiest pedestrian area in the town. So people walking would really have great space to cut through, play in, sit in.
The vision was to have a little higher street poles because they would contain either banners or the hanging pots with flowers or vines and more inviting. We didn't really go to the low foliage, the wrap. We kind of did more uplighting because of the boots. We figured maybe we could
And someday
put
all
trail
the
lights on there.
I was gonna say it'd be nice if it
And it
matched like
ends
the
with
marina
this
and
building.
all, yeah.
Right? So I've already been looking ahead to other opportunities,
Beautiful.
all the way up Central, connect the marina all the way to this building. There is, so the old apartment building had water and sanitary service. Yeah, so it's all still there.
There's a couple of concrete, with the doors built into the tables.
You just say you don't need bathrooms?
Anyone on council have any questions, input, suggestions at this point? Then we'll ask anyone in the audience if they want to weigh in.
And I love the concept. I like I know it's conceptual, but I even like the green roofs and using the gazebo and keeping that feel of what we have elsewhere, and hopefully using that then as an impetus maybe to other things that we can improve to make it more inviting.
I actually walked up Ninth to look at the greenhouse for the million times I've been in those greenhouses in the rain and whatever. I couldn't remember if the underside was white or green, and it's white. So it's a good eye. I was trying to really, we were echoing kind of that Seaside Park greenhouse feel.
The pavilions?
Yeah, the pavilions, the green roofs.
We always called them greenhouses when I was
Yeah,
a kid.
pavilions.
But only the roofs
Green
and the benches and the rails behind the benches are all green.
It
also.
varies, that's varied over time.
Yeah, they do.
Anything else?
For-
When
for
in the
long, long
'70s, we
time.
called them greenhouses, so I'm not gonna argue with you, I'm sure, I don't know what was green and what wasn't, but we called them that then, I don't
Yeah.
know.
It looks
They're
great.
mostly green.
Yeah.
Yeah, the roof at least, I don't know, were the roofs a different color?
No, they're always,
Yeah, they're always.
Yeah,
I
green.
think
green,
it's
but
always
always
green.
green.
I
Always.
thought.
Yeah.
But
Benches.
they've gone through changes over the years. I mean, some of them used to have, the one on C Street used to have the
Yeah.
sides on it, remember?
Yeah.
Yeah, had half walls.
Right, like the one at the marina, in the park, the smaller one actually has half walls on it still.
Well, that was actually made,
Yeah.
I think, later.
But it was that look, that kind of low
I
wall.
believe so.
Yeah, okay.
So, yeah. I appreciate all the work you put into this.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's very good.
Just for purposes of, I know in prior meetings, people asked like, what were the thoughts? And you said you guys came up with this. Is there anything you'd want to share of like other ideas that came up that maybe didn't feel as,
Didn't make it to
yeah,
drawing
didn't
board.
make it as harmonious to the town feel of, you don't have to answer, I'm just
Well,
curious.
this is the only one I was involved
Oh, the only
in,
one
so
you were
I
involved.
can't.
Okay.
I'm
no,
not,
the original thought was to kind of mirror what was done down at the marina with vendors.
Okay.
The idea that came to my mind was to use it for food trucks or vendors. I wasn't in favor of that. I wanted something a little nicer. So that's how the boots came, and then once I thought it, in my mind were the boots, then it was, the boots weren't good enough by themselves. You needed to utilize it more for public use, open space.
it
So
should,
that's how it came to what it was.
it should encourage use even when the booths aren't in use. And the
That's
booths
correct.
should be attractive enough, like, so years ago, there was a really cool design competition for lifeguard stands down in Miami. You know, and it was really amazing what the designers all came up with. But when there wasn't a lifeguard on the stand and the beach was closed, they're just cool objects. So this was a first concept sketch to kind of, like you said, echo what I call a greenhouse. But if this goes forward, we'll do other versions. We'll develop the design, and everyone will get a chance to see it for this. But that's the general idea for the structure. But it should be interesting and a nice object when it's not in use. And 90% of the lot is still open and used when those are closed, right? So that's, we don't want it to dominate it.
And around here, I mean, it's preliminary, but later, you're gonna have to consider the wind and the salt and the harsh winters we have around here, and how, you know, I'm just,
The buildings itself would be only really wear and tear.
yeah.
The shrubbery, you know, shrubbery is shrubbery, it always has to be maintained. That's how I look at it.
I like
They're
the
pretty
idea.
low-key buildings, they're on a concrete slab.
There's no grass, Brian, on this.
Well, the only plantings I think should be native.
Right,
indigenous
plants, but no grass, so.
Right, yeah, the area's either crushed shell or paver, and the reason for the paver is if you have people booked to use the booths and you get some rains for a few days, you can't have soggy ground in front of the booths, right? And we need to always be able to have people kind of spill out here for functions. So this seating and the gazebo I have on the shell area, and this kind of remains open for when you have a function in the booths. That's the idea.
We also need to look for some funding opportunities, maybe.
You're correct. And we have to start somewhere.
Yeah.
This was the first concept, if it's acceptable, and we'll go further. Not,
Yeah, I mean,
another idea.
then if there's positive momentum with this, I think the next step would be to go to a commercial landscaper or a general contractor and get a first budget. You know, I'm very careful. If anybody asks how much, I'm going to say I don't know. You know, because architects are not estimators. Building material costs vary. The marketplace changes constantly, and you don't want to guess. You want the first number to be reliable. So you go to somebody who would actually build it for that.
Never got to get public input. See
Sure.
what they could add or see something different or add to what we think.
Thank you, Brett. Do we have
Thank you.
anyone in the public wants to make a question, raise a question or make a
Yeah,
comment?
I'll do it from here.
Mitch?
It's easier for him to hear me. Mitch Cobble, 20410. Thank you very much for doing this, as giving us some starting point for what we should be considering. I do want to go back to a couple of things you pointed out, though. You indicated that these kiosks or booths could be rented out by the day or over a weekend. What's the concept if someone wanted it for the summer?
For sure.
Okay, so that gets to the question that someone raised about bathrooms. I'm going to guess, and Steve, you can comment, that if we have a facility used 7 days a week, all through the summer, it constitutes a commercial structure. And I believe we have to have a bathroom in every commercial structure.
We were talking about that.
This is the first phase.
No, I'm just
saying.
I think.
No, I understand what you're
I
saying.
happen to whisper to Doc
We don't have
that
one.
we may have a bathroom issue, as a matter of fact.
We
So we're not sure.
Right, but
We're-
we
we're
don't
talking-
have commercial sales at the marina either, so I'm.
No, I understand.
I think
No,
it's a good question.
It's a
good question.
As he's done a great job in meeting building codes, but we also have to meet all
So,
code conditions.
I'm sure you're right that for restaurants serving food of a certain size,
I-
you need bathrooms.
It's something we're gonna look into.
Yeah.
We'll
That's
get the answer.
that's all I'm saying, don't dismiss
No,
the comment about
we
that.
didn't dismiss it.
Well, it sounds like you did, but that's
Yeah,
what I'm saying.
the other thing that we didn't mention is that this would be done probably, or could be done in phases, right? So, you know, how much it's getting used, how much it's getting rented, with the plumbing available on site, with sanitary and water available on site, I think we should certainly have provisions so that if in the future there was a demand for it, and it was producing the revenue to support it. The thing is, I think we're also in the floodplain. Now, I haven't looked at the floodplain
We
study.
definitely are.
We are.
Yeah, so any, you know, certain types of structures would have to be elevated.
And it has a
And now-
really high water table.
Right, and now when we start to talk about fixing bathrooms on this site, we're concerned about ramps and the space it starts to take up. So I don't know where the nearest public bathrooms are, but this isn't an enclosed commercial
Here
space.
or the
This is a open public space, right? So we have to look at it. We look at the need, but also look at the codes.
That was my list. Don't,
That's good.
don't dismiss that comment that was made.
Absolutely.
With all due respect, we were not ready to share this at this point.
Well,
It came out,
I
and I always like to have everything in a row, everything finished before I present. I was not ready to present for another couple of weeks, in all due respect.
No, I think
That's a
We
good
rushed it
question.
to get it to
I'm ready, like, let's hear it, right?
So the other comment I'm gonna make is I like this, and I hope if we go forward and get more plans and we fund it, I hope it works. But what I also like about it is we're not making anything too expensive, too permanent, that if it doesn't work, it could be knocked down, and after the period of, 5 years, we could sell the property. So I like the fact that if it works, fantastic. If not, we haven't really done terrible damage. So, good concept.
Thank you.
Yes, Jim?
Yeah, absolutely. So we show, and again, if this goes forward, we show lighting on it, and I'll describe it to you. But should it go forward, a civil engineer would be involved to put the plan together, and we would look at low glare foot candle levels, right? So there's security and safety lighting, but we don't want to cause glare on the road or the neighbors. So that would get studied with real foot candle counts. But what we're showing to date is a row of light poles here, and we're showing lights on the building. So there could also be some lights along this edge. But so we expect to light it. It's premature to talk about what that lighting design actually is. We're cognizant of like glare and neighbors sleeping in the adjacent properties.
I would be concerned about dark little cubicles at night with no lights.
Right, I mean, these would be closed at night. These would all be closed at night.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because there would be garage doors that roll down, and, galvanized
Dating pods.
doors that would roll down and lock. And so that was, again, talking about vacant lots and places that detract from a community's value. All right, we do want this to be visible. Not a lot of, we're not creating hiding places.
Yeah,
Right? For sure, that's a great point. And so we do, so these circles here would be lights on the building, and then these poles would have luminaires, 20-foot high poles that really keep the lot safe.
Any other? Yes.
I love it. I think it's a wonderful concept. I think what Councilman Conga said about, about it relating it to Bryant Park and the Christmas market, things like that, it just ties into what we're looking to accomplish here with the Boots on the Bay, with all the things we're trying to do for the communities. I can envision after the Christmas tree lighting, people coming here to a Christmas market, Halloween. I mean, we can have the trunk or treat in that area. There are just so many things that we can do, and I think it ties into it.
Thank you. Yeah, we're hoping it's kind of like the seed, It starts the revitalization of that whole street.
People always say, oh, what about Lombard's so busy and what Pleasant's so busy? We need more down here, and I think that could be the catalyst.
Thank you, Jim. Any other public questions, comments at this juncture? And if not, yes.
Hi,
Lillian?
Lily Attenville, 99th Avenue. I just wanted to personally thank you for taking the time to present this beautiful, scape, what we could potentially have, and especially the fact that you designed it with so much open space, native plants, seashells, which is native to us as well, and the potential to just grow. So I see this as a growth opportunity for the community, so thank you again.
My pleasure.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you. I like the old school drawings. by the way.
Thank you. I hadn't done a freehand perspective in a while. No straight edges, no nothing. I just
Really?
I'll get these scanned in and I'll send copies.
Sounds great.
I'll go, through Marty, so that anyone who wants.
Great job, thank you, Brian.
Thank you, Brian.
Should have taken a picture of it.
While we're, thank you, Brian. Does anyone have any public comments on any of the work session items? Yes, Mitch?
You're very good for microphone for this.
Uh-oh.
In all seriousness, I have a few concerns and comments to make on two items. First one is on item A, that's the Literal Society consulting support. The reference is that they have been on a consulting for us for a time, which I knew we hired them at one point, and we're considering re-upping, best word for it, to have to keep going. The concern that I have is since the original presentation approximately 18 months ago, maybe 2 years ago, to the general public, I have seen nothing that was revealed to the public regarding what they've done, what their output, what their comments are. And as a member of the Bayfront Citizens Committee, we have not received any information. So I have a concern about continuing contracts where work is being done and it is not coming out for people to comment on, to ask questions about. So I'll just leave it at that. The second one is regarding item C. That's the engineering concept plan for construction on the softball field. I know this is just a concept plan. The question I had is, what's the scope of the concept plan? What mission are they being asked to do?
They come up with a concept and an estimate. That's what it says.
Well, the concept of what? That's what I'm saying.
Concept of the.
No, there's,
Doing the dugout.
there's a whole lot of, there's a whole lot.
I don't know, that's what I'm asking.
I'm gonna review a list that they provided in the proposal. Of course, we were in a meeting as well. Of course, we've already started to address the lighting, and they're installing the donated playground at this point. But the grading issue, the flooding issue there has been making it very difficult. So part of this is what we're going to look at is the infield, the outfield, the way all of that is graded. The fences need to be readjusted. There were some issues with walls going over the fences. They're kind of looking at the dugouts that are flooding. So the site work is looking at the topsoil and the grading of the infield and outfield. Installing infield and outfield drainage, piping, any type of gutter type of future soil profile test that they would need to kind of look at that. Irrigation replacement, concrete curbing to create retaining areas to prevent that. Dugout reconstruction and replacement is part of that. Bleacher removal or resetting those bleachers that are currently there, which might be okay, but again, taking a look at them to see what could be done to improve it. The chain link fencing, removal or replacement. The one side has this net that goes up there that protects the houses and vehicles. The other side does not. That was raised as a concern. Cars were hit by balls that went over and stuff, so that was looked at and discussed. The mix and the placement of sod in the entirety, so what to put and how to put in the right place to prevent any flooding and overflow is part of it. Different mixes associated with the fill, the pitcher's mound, batter's box, foul poles, bases, home plate, all of those things contained within that field. And then how it's going to also affect the other portions of the new installed playground and what have you. So it's a pretty comprehensive overview of everything, and that is $5,500 for that particular proposal, to look at all of that before we make a decision on any of the
Which
projects.
sounds like a deal.
No, it was quite extensive. I mean,
But we've
went
done a
over quite
lot of work already over there. We've done topographical survey, we've done the playground. The playground had to be built. We were a time limitation for that, so we had to get a few preliminary things done, the lighting.
Right.
That's all done already.
Let me go back. So you may recall about a year ago, I came up when the topic of repairing the lights and repairing the ball field. And I asked the question of, do we know as a community that we want to spend the kind of money on making it a ball field? And the comment that was made to me was that, well, look, we're going to do the lighting, because no matter what we do there, we need the lighting. And I think, Fritz, you're the one who made, we're going to do the playground, we got to make sure the drainage is consistent with all that. I buy that 100%. But now it seems like you're committing to some degree, at least for an engineering study, to the use of that open area as a softball field. And I'll still question whether or not it's what the community of Seaside Park really wants to do with that space. And I think, I have a gut feel it's not as solid behind restoring the field. I'm going to ask this question. We rent the field out occasionally for leagues. They pay a fee?
A lot, all summer.
Well, okay. Does the fees they pay cover our costs? My guess is not completely.
No, I don't really know.
They won't cover
I
the
just know
project.
it's a green
Well, I
acre.
appreciate that. But if you didn't cover the cost, that only
But
adds.
just to add to this, which
It's a green acre property, and we have limitations on what we can utilize that property for.
But it could be other recreational facilities.
But you're saying you don't think there's much support for the ball field. What I hear, and I've lived here a long time, what I hear from people, there is a lot of support for that.
Mitch, that's been a ballpark for the time of Memorial.
I've lived there since '95, I know exactly, but I'm just saying
you
the
hearing?
community has changed a lot. There used to be little leagues, there's no little league anymore. The men's league is coming in from out of the borough, at least part of them are. It's not what it was 30 years ago. I lived here too, I'm appreciative of all this. I'm just saying, before we commit to it, don't you think this council needs to really get a flavor for whether there are potentially more valuable use to the community as it is today for that open space? So I was in favor of the drainage, I was in favor of the lights, because no matter what, we needed it.
Right, well, there's no commitment, so we just hold on, and then.
Well, at 5,500, but
Well, for them to review what that would take, which would still have to be done regardless of what goes there. At the time that they get through this analysis, they will be bringing a presentation to the borough. That's part of this proposal, that they'll come back here with the proposal and present it. It's right in the contract. So at that time, if there's other feelings of the borough and the community, they're welcome to voice it. But most of the things in there, regardless of what you decide to do, or all of us decide to do, have to be addressed anyway.
the only thing I would question then, I appreciate all that.
So I think there's a fair, like what you're saying is fair, but I don't think we're not
If we don't get
committed.
the agenda out for that meeting until the day before, the ability for the public to know about it and get here and voice their comment is quite limited.
No,
So I would just ask, if we know it's coming, a meeting or two down the road, we do a better job in letting the public know, voice your opinion as to, is this what we want to do with that area? And if it turns out they do, I'll sign off.
So what do you mind? Do you have any ideas what other than
Well,
ball?
how many times have we talked about more pickleball courts? Quite honestly, because right now, that seems to be more in favor.
So, I'm sorry.
Well, he's suggesting that,
As-
he's
as
saying
an
that might be an
example.
idea that people might want more pickleball instead of baseball.
That's what I'm saying.
All right, that's understandable.
Or they may have other things, they talked about bocce courts. Get the input, is all I'm asking. Just because we had a ball field here for 45 years, things change. We need to reflect what we want to do going forward. We need to have a strategy, a plan for the future, not just to build back the past. It's got to be a combination. Respect the past, build for the future. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other public questions or comments on the work session? Yes, Jim?
Just Jim Korzenowski, 114H. Just one other comment, besides pickleball, skateboard park, that's been a big thing. And we had lots of people here a couple of months ago. So, and that is in an area that is not as intensely populated, right? So that's something else. Don't forget the pickleball and the skateboard.
I'm gonna tell them you said that, Jim.
Any other questions, comments on the work session? Hearing none, we'll entertain a motion to close the work session and take a brief moment and then begin our regular meetings.
So moved.
Second.